Great. Okay, excellent. Perfect. Welcome. We are just waiting for a couple more people to join. We'll start in about a minute. I like your Atlantic Ivy logo. I like the ivy. That's cool.
Thank you.
All right, great. So we can get started. So hello, everyone. Welcome to a webinar that is hosted by Lumiere Education and Atlantic Ivy. We're so excited to be with Atlantic Ivy today. So Atlantic Ivy delivers top-tier speech and debate training, empowering students and educators across the globe. Their programs focus both on formalized debate tracks as well as personalized public speaking classes tailored to your needs and your interests, from arts to sciences to business. You can visit them online at atlanticivy.org. And joining us today are Tasmia. She is a UC Berkeley alumni with startup experience at Harvard Business School and Berkeley Skydeck. She's a published author and previous researcher at UC Berkeley School of Law, and she's mentored at globally recognized AI healthcare and technology companies. Ricky is the former head coach at the Oxford Union. He's also the coach of WUDC world champion, Harvard champion, and Yale finalist. And Perry is the head coach at Columbia University Union. He coached the winning team at American Debate Tournament of Champions. So we are super excited to have them here with us today. They are really cool. And with that, I will let them take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Aurora, for the introduction. Yeah, that's a little bit about us. I am originally from Washington, D.C. as well, super interested, similar to what Aurora was saying about tech and all of those things. And yeah, this is, we're part of Atlantic Ivy. All three of us were kind of the co-founders. And we, yeah, teach kids high quality debate and public speaking training. We're currently headquartered in Dubai, but we have students kind of across the world. And our curriculum was built by top debaters, and we aim to boost critical thinking and communication skills. Okay. All right, so our first kind of topic that we want to discuss, and thank you everyone for joining us today, is, what do these top universities look for in college admissions and college prep? So Perry, if you want to start us off.
Yeah, absolutely. So what we have here are some truth or myth things on the screen. I'm sure you've obviously heard a lot about how the admissions process works from Lumiere. They seem to be a very good college counseling service. So what I want to hit on here is that the conventional way we think about admissions basically is like you need to have good test scores, you need to have a good SAT, and then like extracurriculars exist sort of out there in this like nebulous blob. Like maybe you start a company, maybe you run on the track team, maybe you do science research. And the truth is, there are a lot of people that do obviously do extracurriculars, and there are a lot of people that do extracurriculars that sound very impressive. And they make them sound even more impressive if they have good college counselors and they write them well on the Common App and they describe them well. But there's a subsection of extracurriculars that colleges look at because they are verifiable accomplishments. And I think debate falls under this category. And what I mean by this is that a lot of people can write stories about, let's say, like starting a company. I grew it to, X amount of money in revenue. And the college, that sounds great. The college, it's very hard for them to verify that. But if they see something like, I don't know, like gold medal on like International Math Olympiad, which is a bit of an extreme example, they know exactly what they means. They know it comes from a reputable organization, and they know how hard it is because they see the totality of applicants over the course of the years, and they have a reference of this is an accomplishment a student got. And debate is very similar, where you have prestigious qualifications like Harvard, the Tournament of Champions in the United States, the World Schools, World Schools debating competition, Harvard World Schools, Oxford Schools, etc. And colleges and universities get applicants that perform very well in these competitions year after year, and they recognize how difficult these competitions are, which means that, especially if your application is a bit nebulous in places, it can be very, very helpful to have a debate achievement that shows that you have done something that is competitive, done something that is difficult, and that really stands out. And even if we're not talking about the sort of highest level of global debating, even if you're debating locally, it's still very helpful because it shows them that you've gone out and done something which is a challenge. You've put yourself in a room against other students and you've come out on top, or at least done well. And, they're looking for students who are willing to pitch themselves, to put themselves out there and to challenge themselves in those ways.
Great.
Ricky, I hope you want to add anything on here.
Yeah.
I think, sorry. Yeah, I think Perry did. Yeah. Great. So yeah, we're in the same room in New York, so it's a little bit of troubling here. And there are verifiable data you can find online about debate leading to better achievements of results. There are sort of two things that we use to convince parents and subsequently kids to join debate outside of it being really fun. The first is that there's something on NSDA, it's the National Speech and Debates Association's website, where they did research over last, I think, 2,000 graduates. They found that they were on average, the proportion of top 10 students who got into top 10 universities is sometimes more than the national average. So that's one data. The next data, you have to do a little bit of digging yourself, which is go to, World Schools Debating Championship, something called a tab, which is basically a result of all the kids competed there. And then if you look at the top 50 speaker, and then you reference that to sort of uni admissions, you'll be able to find very, very good results. So a lot of this is stuff that you can verify yourself. So I think in this age of, numerous extracurriculars, I think debate, research are all really, really important parts of all of this to give the equation. And the last thing I'll say on this is that one myth here is that you can only do debate if you want to do humanities, right? You have to be a political science major or you have to be a philosophy major, etc. And I think that's partially what we mean here by saying that your voice is very important. Because your voice being very important here means that you'll be able to talk about things like sciences, talk about things like fine arts, and convince schools that those are really important at building your narrative. And controversially, if you're not extroverted, you can be very, very good at debate as well. It's more about analytical thinking than about, being incredibly extroverted in the process.
Okay, great. So we kind of also wanted to go over, what do admissions officers really look for? So I wanted to present this kind of visual description of, what is in your control and what is beyond a student's control, and kind of a gray area. So beyond a student's control, for example, is, teacher recommendations, guidance recommendations, a school's reputation and competitions. But what is in your control? Your GPA, obviously, your standardized tests, how much you're studying, but also on top of that, what are your extracurriculars? How are you trying to portray your voice, what you were talking about, and your application and notable accomplishments and that kind of stuff. And so I wanted to highlight some kind of key features of what admissions officers are really looking for, including impact. So impact is, admissions officers are really looking for kind of a tangible difference that you've really made in school or in your organization or in your community. So impact is less about the quantity of activities you have, rather more about the quality of your activities and more in depth about your involvement, particularly, also identifying measurable results. So details and specific changes or improvements you've initiated, whether that be, participating in a club or launching a successful campaign or increasing, community engagement, that kind of thing. And then also on initiative. So it's also about the quality of you taking charge, identifying needs, and acting independently without waiting for, someone to tell you to do something. So throughout your entire life, you have your teachers telling you to do something, your parents telling you to do something. So this is really your opportunity to showcase, how have you grown as an individual, and how are you the one kind of being in charge of your journey and your path, and how have you kind of made that imprint on the rest of your community as well. And whether that be, creating opportunities, how are you problem solving? or also this idea of sustained commitment is something I also really wanted to highlight. So I think a mistake a lot of times students make is that they'll do a lot of different activities because they think that's what admissions officers are really looking for. That's what they think is really important. But it's rather more of this idea is how have I, really committed myself to a particular activity and really showed that I wanted to progress that and show my growth in that for a couple of years or for months or etc. And then also clarity of voice, which is what we're really going to be talking about, is identifying how can you have this authentic storytelling ability and this focused communication that's conveying your goals and your motives really thoughtfully and well. And this is just really important also because communication isn't just a skill you're going to need to get into college, right? It's a skill you're going to need for the rest of your life. And that's what we really want to focus on and to hone in on this presentation as well. And then also potential for contribution to campus life. How are you going to add value? That's what really college admissions are really looking for. And leadership, which we're going to talk about how you can be a leader through communication in our next slide. Okay. Ricky, if you want to.
Yeah, great. So I want to just break down, some of our initial thoughts about what leadership is, especially some of the younger kids we work with, 13 to 15, sometimes struggle with finding the leadership part of their application. And, because everything else is a lot more intuitive, right? Academic parts, you do your exams pretty well. Oh, sorry. And honors part, you do competitions very well. And leadership, and to some extent, like community service are a little bit more, fluffier, they're a little bit harder to achieve. And the intuition kids usually have is that, I need to become a leader of my school club, which I think is great. I think everybody should find passion in school, but also it's a bit harder for you to distinguish yourself in that broader thing. So sort of the takeaway we have on leadership communication and how to relate that to your college applications by using debate is that the best applications we've seen from good debaters are never the ones who just achieve top results at competitions. It is debaters who manage to find a way to sell their story into the realm of leadership and communication. And I'll get into a little bit more examples later down the line over the kids I've seen over the years, and I'll share with you some anonymized examples. But sort of the takeaway from here is, basically like all the things listed here, right? You can use leadership as a way to say that you have persuaded other people. You can establish your presence, and that oftentimes looks like, kids who use debate and tie that with other forms of ECA and try to tell a holistic story, but also to just showcase to you that, you do have basics of these skills, which are really useful to becoming a leader anyways. And I know today's sort of question is about college applications, but that's not the end all be all. I remember once Perry and I met with a kid, and Perry asked the kid, "So what are you going to do after you get into college?" And the kid froze. And we don't really want that to be any of you. So it's really useful to think about what do you want in life and what are the essential skills you're going to develop for that particular life you want to live. And sort of my argument that I'm making is I think communication and effective communication is sort of a baseline skill in which everyone will benefit from.
Great. And also just on this slide, highlighting subtle examples of leadership kind of at the bottom. It doesn't have to be something super, big, you leading, a club or something like that. It can be as small as, a project of hosting a podcast, writing a really compelling personal statement, even leading a group project, and really being able to talk about those examples and how you were able to, showcase your leadership in those. Okay, so Perry, if you want to go ahead and talk about kind of why public speaking and writing is, really crucial and kind of is this funnel for effective communication.
Yeah, absolutely. And this slide also has some of the statistics that I think Ricky mentioned earlier about college admissions here, if you want to take a look at them. But the really simple version is if you have no idea what you want to do with your life, whatever you want to do or whatever you could want to do probably requires the ability to communicate with other people, to persuade other people, to explain the things that you're doing well, and to understand the things that you're doing poorly. And it doesn't hurt to build those skills, no matter what you want to do, right? Regardless of whether you're in a college interview, you're in an interview for your first internship, you're working on a group project, or you're working on, actual work at your internship or at your first job, it is incredibly helpful to be able to, one, break down questions or arguments. Questions are all arguments, effectively, or rely on an argumentative chain, and then to be able to answer them logically and answer them persuasively. And that's, I think, the biggest thing that I've noticed of a before and after that occurs when kids do debate. And this is both the students that we work with and the people that I, grew up debating against and went to college with and saw get their first jobs after college, etc., is it really helps you be so much more of an articulate person. It helps you learn to think on the fly. It helps you be able to structure arguments very, very logically, even if you have very little idea what you're writing about, what you're talking about, etc. You're able to be like, here are 3 reasons why I want to go to your school. Here are 3 thoughts that I have on this admissions essay. Here are 3 thoughts that I have on this actual essay, and to just put your points out very, very clearly. So that's the pitch that I'd probably make about this, or at least what I would say about this, is it really helps to be able to give logical answers no matter what you want to do. And especially if you have no idea what you want to do, it really helps because that's a skill that you will need regardless.
Great. And also in our visual, I kind of wanted to highlight 2 of our students here that we have, Yo-Yo and Smayon. So those are some of our newer students. And they, before coming to Atlantic Ivy or kind of participating in debate, they didn't really have any prior experience. And they have, kind of really shy kids, and they've really blossomed into, some of our top students. As you can see, they're kind of holding their awards they participated in the Harvard debate competition. And now it's a really big passion of theirs. Perry actually was there with them during the tournament. Perry, if you have a story you want to tell kind of about them as well.
Well, yeah, so they got to quarterfinals in middle school. This was both of their first tournament ever. And I think that what this shows is that debate can, one, be really fun and can be something that you enjoy, even if you think right now, oh, I'm like afraid to like stand up and be yelled at by some guy in a suit or whatever, right? It's not really like that. It's actually really fun, and it could be something that you enjoy. And two, that it's something you can learn very quickly at, right? Obviously, like anything, it takes dedication, it takes effort to be good at something, but it's not something that's necessarily going to take you years and years before you start seeing any payoff whatsoever, right? It's something that after, even your first semester of taking courses, you can start to attend competitions. And if you apply yourself, you can start to do well in junior categories and have fun doing it. So I think that's sort of the takeaway from this, is that the barrier to entry is a bit lower than people think, especially if you're getting correct instruction as to what tournaments you should attend and how you should prepare for them.
Great. So we're going to go over some real student examples now. Ricky, if you want to go ahead.
Yeah, so there are a couple of students, I want to talk about, and some of which are not on the slide because there was one that I forgot about that was really close to me. So I'm just gonna add that here. So the first one I want to talk about is my high school debating partner, and how he sold his debating story. I think that will be very useful for other kids here. So my high school debating partner, not to name any names, went to a pretty nice boarding school in the US. Not the like, true top 10 boarding schools, but still a very, very decent regional boarding school. And we did PF together for 3, 4 years. And the kid was really passionate about, ancient Greek, ancient Rome, in addition to debate. So he did all the other stuff, if you're more familiar with the humanities side of things, like Concord Review, etc., and also publications in that region. So what he managed to do is he managed to sell this whole story of himself as a, Chinese international student who's interested in Latin, but also is interested in Latin because of the Socratic debates, because of how they approached knowledge back then, because of, like he believes that truth should be disputed, etc., etc. And that constructs a very sort of unique story, especially when this was what, 10 years ago, where the whole discussion about, like perhaps like kids doing Latin was a little bit less and was more congregated into like traditional elite boarding schools that would do that type of research. And what he managed to do then is, he did incredible in the application season. I think into every single Ivy with the exception of one. Um, and but that's a very, very nice way of him being able to sort of tell his story here. The second one is about is my debate partner in university today. Oh, I shouldn't have said his name. But anyways, so my debate partner in university, and this is more for the UK. He did his undergrad at Oxford in PPE, and what the guy managed to do then is, in addition of using, because US and UK applications are different, instead of solely selling individuals on things like extracurriculars, he managed to excel at the Oxford interview, which is more of a grilling of your academics than anything else. He also was working at the Oxford Union afterwards, which allowed him to get his current job. Even later, when you apply for like hedge fund jobs like Bridgewater, their interview basically mimics a debate round. So then, sort of allows him with a longer period of a career benefit here as well. And the third one that was listed here is about TEDx organizations to Stanford. And that's more about telling your sort of localized story and focusing more on the speech element of this instead of focusing more on the debate element of this, where you're able to sort of sell that, I actually have a multitude of interest. I'm using speech as a vehicle of my interest. But all of them also did very well at competitions as well. So sort of like competitions, I think, excel a baseline of things. It makes sure that, when you go on Common App, when you put in the 5 honors, you can put something that colleges really, really value. You can make sure that you demonstrate that you're very, very competent. But then the next part is about using that story and constructing a holistic version of your life and your interests. And note it doesn't have to be certain, right? It's not like PhD admissions where you're like dead set on one thing. Um, but rather you still need to have a broad picture, and it doesn't have to be by subject. It could even be by intellect, because all of us are different and all of our ways of reasoning and understanding of the world is different. So there's that.
Great. So we kind of also wanted to touch on some actionable steps in general here. Perry, if you want to go ahead and talk a little bit more about this.
Yeah, sure. So I think what Tasmin's put together here are a really great collection of actionable steps that you can take alongside attending competitions, because obviously debate does tend to have a like tournament element to it, right? Like whether you do the more public speaking side of it, you're going to speech competitions or you're going to debate competitions. But the very nice part about this, especially in comparison to something a bit more traditional like athletics, is that you're able to really tie it to the sort of constellation of your interests in a very diverse array of ways, right? You can create a debate club at your school. You can create a blog or a YouTube channel with instructional debate content for younger students. Debate oftentimes has topics, actually. Tournaments will use like the same topic for about a month, 2 months, especially in the American formats, that you're able to do research in. And I know plenty of people who would do a bunch of research on a topic for a debate competition who would say, hey, this topic is really interesting. I went super hard. I have, 50 pages of research on it. Let me take this research and publish a paper with a professor, publish a paper in a high school journal, start a blog writing about that topic, right? And then that turned into something that they wrote their college essay on about how, let's say, I found out about AI safety through a debate because I debated this AI safety topic. Then I started an AI safety blog. I wrote, a paper with a professor in my senior year, and now I want to go to your school to continue with this interest. And what's very helpful with this is that whether you're a humanities student, a science student, a sort of pre-professional student, is that it really can be both related to everything and incorporated in everything. And it can demonstrate that leadership and that extra initiative very easily, because it oftentimes requires that and gives you a lot of opportunities to go above and beyond.
And so lastly, we kind of just wanted to recap a little bit of everything we've been saying. And just this idea of, universities really want leaders, not just, top students and top grades. They want to see people that have been really involved and being able to showcase all of their abilities. And we really think that communication is a really powerful way to be able to show leadership. Just this idea of, starting now and not just waiting for a title. You don't need to be specifically a president of the club or vice president or whatever. rather that you're just really trying to engage and really trying to make an impact in general. And I also wanted to highlight a couple of key quotes that I thought were quite interesting that kind of really emphasize these points and a lot of topics that we've talked about from university admissions officers at some of the top universities. So, for example, Princeton's University admissions, present yourself authentically. We aren't looking for a resume, we're looking for a person. Yale University admissions, we want to hear your story in your voice. Be real, be you. And then University of Chicago admissions, we're looking for students who use their voice, not just their test scores. All right, great. Well, thank you guys so much. Really, thank you so much. I don't know what time zone everyone is in, but thank you so much for taking the time out of your day to kind of hear us and talk with us. And if any of you guys have any questions, please feel free to write them in the chat
I've
or
also
come up to me.
attached a tear sheet of some of the online programs that we'll be offering. We'll be running 3 online classes this semester. We'll be running multiple iterations of them, so it should be pretty flexible to time zone. In addition to this, we also offer travel tournaments. If you're in a different country or you don't have a school to compete with, you can compete through Atlantic Ivy. We're going to Yale, we're going to Harvard, and then we're going to go to Cambridge. But if you already are competing with a school, we're also more than happy to support you. So this should have some more information on our program offerings. It should also have a link to sign up through a Google form. And then when you do that, we'll set up a time to talk more about the specifics. But yeah, happy to take any questions.
Great, thank you all so much. Yeah, so if you have any questions for them, please feel free to type it into the chat, and I will be monitoring it and posing the questions to them. So I'll just give 30 seconds for you to think of some questions, and then we will have answers for you. In the meantime, while we wait, do any of you guys have any stories of, maybe one, I guess one experience debating where you really wish that you had a mentor on stage with you to kind of coach you through, like some sort of high stakes, embarrassing moment, or it can be positive, one moment where you're like, yeah, I got this. This was the best moment of my life.
I have a good answer to this.
Okay.
I started debating when I was 12, and I went to a middle school that was very small. We didn't have any institutional support. My debate team was basically me and my friend, who the history professor had told was like, you can't shut up in class. You should go to a debate tournament. Um, and we went to a tournament by ourselves. And we stayed up till like 4 a.m. the night before because we didn't figure out that you weren't supposed to pre-write every single speech. You're supposed to give, each team has to give 4 speeches, and we thought you had to write the complete duration of every single speech. And it turned out the debate was actually far more interesting. It was a public speaking activity where you didn't have to write things beforehand. You actually learned to say things in response to what your opponent said and to persuade people. So I think that it is really helpful to have some degree of direction, even if it's not, super, super intensive direction, to just understand what am I supposed to do and to go in with confidence and to be able to do it. Additionally, beyond the online programs, I'm not sure if anyone in this webinar is joining us from the UAE or New York City, but if you do, we do have in-person options in those places and the potential for them. So feel free to reach out about that as well. Um, yeah, very happy again to answer any questions about debate, in terms of what formats you could do, etc. What I would say to people as well is 2 things. One, we focused a lot on the college admissions aspect of this. Debate is also an incredible activity that's really fun, and I think just makes you a better human being. And I would, even if you don't compete through Atlantic Ivy, I would really love if all of you, went away from this being more interested in exploring debate because it really is something that's wonderful and I think can change your life. The second thing is that on the college admissions angle, there really are a lot of various options that you can pursue with debate. That you can be the first person to do something, especially if you're out of the US. And if that's something that interests you, we're more than happy to talk to you about it.
Awesome, thank you. We do have a question that says, how can we make a simple volunteering work into an impactful work?
I can take this one if Yeah, I can take this one. So very, very good question. I was really involved in a lot of volunteering work when I was in high school. And to make it impactful work, I actually started to create. So the organization that I did is I was part of this organization called So What Else, and I would kind of go into underprivileged communities in both Baltimore area. And we would do, different kinds of activities, whether that be, helping them, playing with them during like games or like that kind of stuff, helping them understand, first aid stuff. But something that I didn't have a specific leadership position, but I took initiative and I wanted to do a particular project with them. So I was really passionate about mental health, for example, and particularly, using art as a method of mental health. So I kind of presented that initiative and I was like, hey, in a couple months, is there any way we can kind of create this project with these communities? Is there any way we can do that? And I thought, that was a way of creative leadership, through volunteering, even though it wasn't an official title or anything like that. Um, and yeah, I think just kind of taking small, projects or goals, things that you might be interested in, and combining it with volunteer work can be a really effective way of showing leadership through volunteering.
Awesome. Thank you. Any other questions for our presenters? Oh, I have another one. Okay. What are some tips for international students to stand out?
Yeah, I'm happy to answer this. So I've if you could, I don't know what country you're from, that would help a little bit. And if the answer for this is in the context of debate, there's really two things that you can do. The first thing is most countries have a WSDC national team. This is a team that does an event called World Schools, and they'll have a national team which selects like the best 3 to 5 debaters in the country to compete for a tournament. And obviously, this is very, very competitive in the US, in China, etc. That doesn't mean you still shouldn't do it, just that it's difficult. But in a lot of countries where debating is less robust and less developed, this isn't as competitive. And in fact, if your country doesn't have a national team, you can literally be the first person to ever start a national team from this country. As long as you find a teacher that's willing to sponsor you, you like reasonably advertise and give students from other schools the opportunity to go to a trial. Um, and it really is a great way to stand out and attend a verifiable competition. The second thing that you could do to stand out through debate is to attend American competitions. There's just been a number of new initiatives by the people who like run high school debate effectively, to expand access to international students, which means that this is going to be the first period of like 2 or 3 years where students from all over the world have the opportunity to holistically engage in the American events. So if you're from, let's say, I don't know, like Sri Lanka, right? You might be the first person ever from Sri Lanka to like get to elimination rounds at a public forum debate tournament or to attend the Harvard tournament, which is, I think, incredibly impressive and shows leadership, shows risk-taking ability, and shows that you want to connect with, people around the globe to top colleges and universities.
Perfect. Thank you. Um, yeah, I don't know if you want to state which country you are from. No worries if you don't want to. But anyone else have questions? Okay, so I have a question. If my school doesn't offer AP courses, is it going to negatively impact my application?
Yeah, so I guess I can answer this. Um, I think that, and Ricky, you can feel free to jump in here as well if you want to add on to what I said. But the short answer is you will not be judged for not taking AP courses because they're not available to you, but you might not get the sort of extra benefit that you would get from taking AP courses if they were available to you. Now, it's worth noting, one, oftentimes a lot of schools that don't offer AP courses do offer other things such as IB, etc. I don't know if your school offers that, but if it does, you should just do that instead. Two is that you have the opportunity to take AP courses, even if your school doesn't offer an AP class, you can still sign up for and sit the test. Frankly, and there obviously are some exceptions to this, like physics. If we're talking about like AP US history, AP World, a lot of those, if you took a good class on that and you buy a prep book, you should be fine for the test as long as you apply yourself. It's pretty common for people to take tests that they didn't necessarily take an AP class for at their school. But as long as you prepare and as long as you know the content, there's not going to be a bunch of like crazy secret AP knowledge on the test that you would only get from taking an AP class.
The only other thing that I'd kind of add on as well is the purpose of AP classes is to show that you have kind of that academic rigor in that specific core class. So let's say you're applying to a school as, you know, a computer science major. I'm just saying that because at my school, at my high school, they didn't offer AP computer science. So instead, what I did to show that I kind of had that academic rigor is I took a subject test in particularly that subject to showcase that, hey, I still kind of understand these core ideas. I'll still be a good applicant for applying for that particular major.
Perfect. Thank you. I did IB and AP in high school, and I kind of regretted doing both. I wish I just did
I know
AP.
they offer both at schools.
Yeah, it was crazy. I basically didn't sleep my junior year of high school. Yeah. All right. Any other questions? If not, we will wrap up our, okay, this person is asking if alternatively, if they don't have AP classes, if they take individual courses on, say, MIT YouTube courses, you know, what are your thoughts on how effective that would be in college applications?
Yeah. So, my sort of like my thought on this is that given that a lot of those courses and those certificates are pretty easily achievable, I would still say maybe take an AP subject test instead. Although there are some, online courses that are incredible that you should, take anyways. Like the MIT one on linear algebra was very, very good. I remember taking a senior year of high school. And sort of like, but I would say that maybe taking an AP subject test in that regard will be a little bit more useful than the certificates you can find online, although they do offer a really good foundation of knowledge.
Awesome. Thank you so much, you guys, for presenting. I think those are all the questions that we have time for. So, you know, again, everyone who's participating in this, Perry sent a file in the chat. Feel free to download that and use that for your reference. And again, the website that you can visit is atlanticivy.org. If you want to hear more about their program offerings, super excited at what they're doing. Thank you all again for coming here to present. We really appreciate your time.
Thank you. Thank you so much. And
Thank
thank you,
you.
Laura
Thank you,
and Lumiere
Claudia.
Education for the opportunity to be able to talk.
Of course. Yeah. Have a great day, everyone.
Bye.
Bye.